out of Booneville, which is this community in Mendocino County, Northern California. And the way he was describing it to me in this barn or whatever, it sounded like the Garden of Eden or something. You know what I mean? Like, and I wanted so badly to go with him, and he promised me and this other guy that was playing guitar too that he would take us. And we passed out at the lady's house. When we woke up that next morning, he was still there. And I was like, man, you ready to go to California? And he was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like when I pressed him, he's like, man, I was on acid. I was on acid. I don't remember any of that. I don't have any room for you. And I begged him like my life depended on it. And he took me and this old boy who was playing guitar, actually taught me a lot of songs back then. He took us to California. But as we got closer to Booneville, and we were talking to naive young Texas boys who had never been anywhere, he realized he, didn't want us going anywhere near those hippies he was living with there in Booneville. So he left us, he pulled into like a grocery store and left us in this parking lot in Vacaville. And that's when I really started hitchhiking in my life, is like when we kind of got abandoned in a parking lot.
Wow.
Kind of along the 5, right?
How old were you?
21, probably 22, something like that. And I had done a little bit of hitching before, like around the South, Texas and like Louisiana, but I'd never really been way out there. And anyway, I started hitchhiking around because I had to. But I remember it was in California the first time by anybody besides my mama ever looked at me playing guitar as it having any kind of value, like any economic value, or like it was a trade of, recognition, It was kind of the first time I was out there.
So you'd been playing about four or 5 years back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was playing outside because our place was so small. I wasn't playing outside to like make money or anything like that. I would go to this park, had like a baseball diamond on it, sit on these bleachers or whatever. And I'll never forget the first time anybody threw like just a pocket full of change in my case. I'm sure it's because they, were worried about me or felt bad for me or whatever, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that money hit the case and then like a light went off or anything, It was a slow, gradual deal. Like I was playing outside because there wasn't enough room to play in the house or whatever, And then, I got in a lot of trouble with the law, which kind of put me on the road. And
what was the trouble with the law?
I've said it a lot, and it's funny, I'm a lot better known than I used to be, so it's like you say stuff about your family, and they hear about it, and
they get mad.
Yeah. But it's so funny, because it's all over the internet, and they're the ones that had the government on their ass, not me. But anyways, yeah, we just kind of, shit hit the fan, got up in the newspapers. My brother didn't go to high school. Neither did my sister. Neither of them went to high school. They both dropped out, because I'm from South Texas. I was born in the Rio Grande Valley. They were born up in Dallas, but my mama had moved down there to South Padre Island area, McAllen, Harlingen area there. And anyway, it's poor and pretty hard living down there. And, hell, I didn't wear shoes till I was probably 9 or 10 years old,
Really?
Playing outside. And my brother and sister, they're 10 years older than me, half brother and sister, and we have different daddies. And they really lived wild, things were pretty tough back then or whatever. I'm telling you that background because my brother became a hustler, because he had to, because of a lack of education, lack of access, because of poverty. And I've honestly always respected him for that, He used to take me around door to door selling newspapers when I was 11, right? And you want to know why? Because I had broken my arm. And he realized if you carted that young boy out in front of those apartments when that lady answered the door, and it's these two brothers and one of them's got a broken arm, she's gonna go ahead and subscribe.
Yeah, she was bad.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, man, he, through all that stuff, he started out as a door-to-door salesman, hustling newspaper subscriptions, right? Then he started like selling neckties and like men's clothing door to door in downtown Dallas office buildings, you know, and as a very young man. And eventually he graduated to, you know, hard knock boiler room type of guys. You know, you keep knocking on those doors in that Wild West business scene of towns like Dallas, you know, or Houston, you know, eventually you're going to find what you're looking for. And he got in with some big old wolves, you know, and eventually it knocked everybody out, and a lot of people died. A lot of people went to prison. And, you know, we were in the paper, and I found myself not being able to get a bank account, and nobody I knew would go near me, you know, and so it ended up being like a Bob Marley type of thing, you know, like, you know, he said, if you're not living good, travel wide. Right? And I literally just walked out of town because, you know, we had scarlet letters on our chest, and that's when I really started learning how to stand behind that guitar and write songs, and slowly but surely I learned how to play basically in front of people, and people just were giving me money kind of over time. That and, you know, food and shelter in exchange for my story at their back door.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. You think your family's got drama? Wait till you meet the Buckleys. I'm talking about the new Netflix drama, The Waterfront. Set in a coastal town in North Carolina, it follows the powerful Buckley family who've ruled Havenport for decades. But now their fishing empire is falling apart fast, and their legacy is on the line. There's power grabs, addiction, legacy, love. From the creator of Scream and Dawson's Creek, The Waterfront is messy, twisty, and totally binge-worthy. Watch The Waterfront now, only on Netflix.
You know?
Do you ever wonder, like, how things could have gone? Because things turned out great. Like, look, you're a popular music artist now.
Yeah.
You know, worldwide. You're famous.
I'm surprised you know what I'm surprised by? I'm surprised I never got heavily addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
I am. You know, it was my sister passed away 10 years ago from substances and hard living and all that kind of stuff. And hell, my whole family's in AA. Everybody, top to bottom, left to right, turn them inside out. I think about it a lot, but I really do, you know. And I remember I was living with that guy who was at the shanty that was playing guitar. He's on the football team. I knew him from sports. His name was Daniel Harmon. And he went out there to California with me that first time. And we were living on farms, and I was working for ganja farmers, working on horse farms, working for winemakers, all kind of people, you know, just doing grunt work for them, doing the fence work they didn't want to do, moving soil for people, you know what I mean, digging ditches, you know, laying pipe across really hard, you know, rocky roads. Not anything anybody can do. You just need, you know, broad back and to be young.
Right.
And but before I ever left Texas, I moved in with his sister, and I remember, and she was just my friend. I was never in a relationship with her or anything, but she was working at Silver City in West Dallas, the Gentlemen's Club, at 18, and making more money than anybody I'd ever seen. The girl was 18, you know, and just making crazy money. And she let me rent a room from her and kind of gave me a deal and all that. And I ended up writing a song kind of about it more recently called Easy Money that I did with Shooter on the Lonesome Drifter record. And that's kind of that thing, you know, if you're a poor kid from Texas, there's no such thing, you know, as easy money. But I can't remember why I was telling you that, but it was hard I just remember like you'd see like young women working in strip clubs, making big money. And the ones that I was around and have been around, very, very hard for that line of work, my line of work, your line of work, not to become addicted.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't have a problem with, you know, a lot of the best artists I ever saw like, struggled with addiction, you know. But in that way, I have been very fortunate, very, very fortunate.
How did you avoid it?
I don't know. You know what it is, man? I never had no kind of tolerance. You know, I've always been like, I just get drunk off of one drink. And it's never changed.
Well,
I just felt it all like really strong,
That's
like,
probably good.
yeah.
Maybe it's a survival instinct too.
I've never really thought about why, but I have considered it because my brother's been through, he did a lot of time in prison, and, my sister had, and my mama, they both had their first kid, when they were teenagers, A lot of it I do credit to my mama, it's like, she told me something I remember that stuck with me. I've been saying this all the time, Joe. And like, we had a lot of trouble in our family and a lot of people that we knew, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of trauma. But when my mama kind of got out of that, she kind of is the person in the family that said, I'm going to change the trajectory of this line now in my generation. And she didn't have an education, and she took herself back to school after I was born, and cleaned up her act and got out of it, and isolated me from a lot of that shit, and which I think is a big part of the reason that I maybe didn't.
Right, you had a role model.
Yeah, I had a role model.
Yeah.
There was no male role models, at least not at home. They were only pro athletes and coaches at school. It's increasingly difficult for young men to find strong men of courage and vision that can help them grow into good men too. It seems almost impossible these days. It's unbelievable.
It's
right?
very difficult to find in your personal life.
It's hard, man.
You have to find it in other ways. You have to find it people online or
I found it
in
in
the world.
Athletes in like excellence in like athletics.
Right.
Where
the only way you can get there is hard work.
Yeah. And the odds are stacked against you,
Yeah.
and it requires incredible focus. I think that's why I'm always so in such awe of those people when they're able to succeed like that. But what I wanted to say to you that my mama said, she said, what happened to you when you were young is not your fault, but now you're a man, and it's your responsibility. And I've been living off of that, for a long time, because it's like, if you don't take responsibility at some point, man, it'll never leave you alone.
Right. You can't think that you're a victim. Yeah. You can't think that it's not your fault. You got to take responsibility. That's hard for people to accept when they know they've been victimized. When they know they've been dealt a shitty hand of cards, you can just kind of wallow in it. But that's a trap. That's a trap that'll fuck you up. It'll fuck up everybody around you too.
Damn right.
Yeah, but it's a mindset thing. It's like you can think your way out of that. You have to have an example though. Either you have to be your own example, or you have to find an example of someone else who thought their way out of it.
And for my brother, for all the trouble that he's been in, in a way, like, I think he also was trying to help me, and so, his hustle and his work ethic in another sense, that's been helpful to me too, because I remember he used to hand out flyers and shit all over the place. And when I'd be like a teenager, he'd be like, listen to me now. If you leave an event at the other day that you're handing out flyers and you're flooding it with promotion, if you can even see that pavement underneath the, pamphlets that you're handing out, you didn't promote it.
Wow.
That's what he used to tell me. I was like 15, 16, and that mentality came in handy for me because, I was just a street performer, just an itinerant performer. And, I did have to learn how to market myself, and part of the reason that I was, man, sometimes being underestimated is like the best thing that could happen to you, because I think one of the biggest challenges for, like, in the music industry at least, is that the way the business works now is they're almost exclusively, you ever seen Moneyball? Brad Pitt flick Moneyball?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How they introduced that concept of looking at the data to, like, maximize the potential of the athletes and all that kind of stuff, which has totally changed the game, all the games. I kind of call it money guitar, right? Which is like, the business is seeding the young amateur, and for the way that they spend and invest and can move on if it doesn't work out, it's like kind of a, it's kind of a pump and dump, and
Right.
the thing about that, and it works. Like if somebody has if somebody, like some of these guys, like you mentioned Oliver Anthony and some of these guys, they have a viral hit out of nowhere. They've never played a venue or anything in their life. It can happen really fast. And then obviously there's tremendous challenges, down the line trying to keep that, astronomical, quick rise up there. But back in the day, the business deals weren't any good. You know that. They were terrible.
Right.
What they were good about, though, in a lot of cases, was developing these artists on these rosters, even if they were taking advantage of these poor farm boys, taking advantage, of, poor black artists from the South or women or whatever. Nobody was getting a good deal, basically. But, like guys like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, those guys were making 2-3 records a year.
Wow.
And you think about when Waylon breaks through, right, in the mid-'70s, and like as he's doing, coming into his own in 1974, 1975. I mean, how many records in is he at that point?
Wow.
He's,
Yeah.
well, how many? I mean, Willie's Red-Headed Stranger, which revolutionized country music, or like the Outlaws compilation record that the two of them were on together, which was basically a compilation and kind of marketed as the outlaw subgenre. Those guys were 15, 16, 17 records in,
Right.
Aretha Franklin popped off on her 9th or 10th record,
Wow.
and most of these artists, the way the business works, they won't make 9 or 10 records in their career.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
That is crazy. And what better way to develop than to just keep constantly producing new music and learn along the way?
In being neglected or misunderstood by the business when I was first dealing with it, it was really a blessing, because I ended up making so many records,
Yeah. The music business has always been so predatory. But it's like, it's the way I describe a lot of things. It's like when you get something that's good combined with a bunch of people that want to make money off that something that's good. Whether it's medicine or whether it's music or even in comedy, you get the same thing. You get a bunch of people that just think they can make money off you.
Man, I always thought comedy was the hardest. Always figured it was the hardest, right? Because you got to make them laugh or they're gonna fucking kill you.
And you have new shit all the time.
There's nothing behind you. There's not even a guitar covering you up.
Right.
It's crazy to me just to watch all those guys do their bit and shit. So I was always amazed by even people going up at like the open mics and like trying out their routine. That always terrified me.
It terrifies me still when I watch open mics. I watch open mics and I watch someone bombing. I got to leave the room because I fear that it's contagious. Like if I was on the road and I didn't get to pick my opening acts, like if I was working at a club and they had some local act in Florida or something like that, and the guy was fucking terrible, I would literally have to like not listen. I'd have to leave the room and just sort of time when I was going to go on stage, so I could go on stage with a fresh mindset. I couldn't think that this audience had been poisoned by this guy's shitty comedy.
I get that.
You know what I mean? It's like it's terrible, and it's like you think that nothing could be funny.
Yeah.
It's like this, like he's hypnotized them
Right.
into this like mediocre state of mind. Like, I can't listen. I gotta hide.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they could have that strong an effect on the audience like that quick. I mean, somebody can be up there fucking it up like crazy musically,
Yeah.
and you kind of get a pass,
Right.
Poetic license or whatever.
Well, people, it's tolerable if the guy's into it. He could be into his own music, and you're like, I'm not into it, but he's into it. At least he's like doing his song. If you're not into, if you're doing comedy and the audience is not into it, you're fucked. You're like really fucked. You have to engage those people.
I see that. It's unbelievable.
You got to be connected to those people, and you can't fake it. Like, you can't even be saying the words perfectly and not be thinking about it. You have to be thinking about what you're saying. They know. They're little animals. They smell you. They know. They know if you're faking it. And you just got to lock in, man. And you got to learn how to lock in. It takes about 10 years. It takes 10 years of eating shit. Just fucking bombing and traveling around and opening up for people and barely getting by.
That's the same thing with music, though, about the 10-year deal, you know, the 10,000 hour thing. There's no doubt about it.
I think it's probably almost everything.
Yeah. Anything.
Almost everything.
Anything you dedicate yourself to. You know, you like Noam Chomsky?
Yeah, sure.
You ever
I like
seen
old Noam Chomsky.
Yeah.
So, I listened to him today. I'm like, Jesus, stop talking.
Yeah, he's popping off, isn't he?
Well, he just went the COVID vaccine stuff. He was out of his fucking mind. He wanted people to be isolated and quarantined and taken away from society if they weren't willing to take this fucking experimental shit that turned out to
I
not
haven't
even
kept
work.
up with him in recent years.
Well, he's old, right? And old people, unfortunately, also, he's an academic. So academics tend to trust experts in whatever field they're in. And if he doesn't have an understanding, like he has a deep understanding of how compromised people are politically by money, you know, and he's written some brilliant work on essentially the way the media is compromised and the way, you know, politics are compromised. I don't think he applied that same skepticism towards the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
Which is strange.
Well, people have their blind spots.
Yeah, we all do.
And they trust experts, and if he's got experts that are academics, and he trusts them, and also he's old, and old people get real scared of diseases. They get real scared because they know how fucking vulnerable they are. All the people that I knew that were old had the craziest reaction to COVID. Terrified. Even my own parents tried to talk them through some of this stuff. They didn't want to hear it. They only wanted to listen to doctors. I'm like, I don't think this is what they're telling you.
Yeah,
you know,
doctors are crazy. They got a cabinet full of pills that they've been sold to sell you,
and they're incentivized. That's what's really crazy. When I found that out, I learned so much during the pandemic about the medical industry, where I just thought they were there to. I'm so naive. I didn't even realize that hospitals are privately owned. I thought these were things set up by the government to make sure that people can get healed.
Right.
You know, I thought it was all about making people better. And
they're not public. The closest thing to public is if they're owned by like a, religious organization,
right.
A church.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And they're just fucking shuffling people in and out, trying to prescribe them as many things. And they're financially incentivized to prescribe things. And then they have extreme overhead because they have liability insurance, they have student loan debt, and they have, a high overhead to keep their practice running. And
where's Bernie Sanders when you need him?
Yeah,
well, no. See, so I had open heart surgery right here in Austin to fix a.
What was wrong with your heart?
Valve here. Well, I was born with Wolff-Parkinson's white disease. It's an electrical issue in your heart. Basically, like. Your heart misfires. All this electricity is moving through it all the time. Like a semiconductor or whatever. And there was like a section of it that was like misfiring, and it would cause an arrhythmia with me.
Wow.
And when I was a kid in South Texas, we were told that was all I knew about, and we were told that it was an annoyance. Because I almost died a couple times when I was really, really young from it, and my mama noticed and saved my life a couple times by driving in, into the city there into San Benito, and them hooking me up to all the wires and saving me. Anyways, they told me as I got older that it would just, I could get, an ablation for it, where they apply heat basically and close this electrical channel that's stuck in a loop or whatever. But it wasn't life-threatening. And then I got out here, I was on the street for years. And then when I was coming off the street through kind of blues jams, and I had been, I was working on ganja farms and had started selling, weed in the mail and all that to kind of get off street, buy myself some better clothes, get myself a good guitar and an amp and all that. Started showing up at blues jams, and then I could like, because everything takes money, like. Problem with being a street player was you even go play the open mics that have a 2 damn drink minimum,
Right.
and they'd see my crazy ass come in and knew that I was, pretty wild, and they didn't have any money, and I didn't smell good, so they really didn't like me for the longest time or whatever. But through blues jams, I started leading bands in bars, and Deep Ellum. First gig I ever got in Austin was right there at Darwin's Pub. On 6th Street, playing kind of solo in the afternoon. It was the only guy, CJ was the only guy that gave me a gig, even on 6th Street. I always owed him for that. And I think he was giving me $50. He wanted me to get paid out of the well whiskey and those what does he sell over there? Those gyros or whatever the hell he's got over there. Anyway, I get on the road. I get an agent. I was standing out at Green Hall handing CDs out on a street corner because I couldn't get into the show. Handed a guy a CD. His name's Evan Felker. I didn't know who he was at the time, but he's front man for Turnpike Troubadours. I gave him a CD, and he took it home and he listened to it with his then girlfriend and now wife. And lo and behold, his agent John Folk called me up and started booking me. And then that's when I started playing the old red dirt. I like to call it the Hank Williams circuit. The kind of old country chitlin circuit. John Folk had kind of inherited it from like Buddy Lee Attractions from an earlier generation that goes all the way back to Lucky Moeller and that old South circuit that all the R&B and the hillbilly country boys were on, and Folk kind of inherited it and rebuilt it. And then then Coke and Pepsi came in, CAA and William Morris and Wasserman, and bought it all out, and you had no choice. I mean, they were going to part it out no matter what, and that's the way that it works, right? When you get Coca-Cola's attention, right, and they show up and they're like, good job, you're taking some of our money away from us, we're going to buy you out, son. Right, I think you can refuse them once or twice and they'll come back with a better deal, right? After that, if you keep turning them down, then they put all their energy into knocking you out,
Yeah.
That's what I mean. As long as Coke doesn't change the flavor of Coca-Cola, right? They can, that gangster shit, all the other gangster shit they do works really well. As long as they don't fuck up the original